Matt Eberflus has two franchise-altering decisions in front of him with Matt Eberflus and Justin Fields. It'll be easy for us to get caught up in whatever happens against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday, but Ryan Poles needs to take a step back and make these decisions without the emotion attached.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast on all of your favorite social media platforms at Locked On Bears, including YouTube, where you can find all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. On the show today, we take a step back with all of the emotion and energy and debate and passion that's gone on really in the Bears media and fan and social media world about Justin Fields and Matt Eberflus to kind of take some of the emotion out of it and look more broadly at how to think about this decision for both Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles, because I think we get so caught up in all of the different stakeholders involved, what the players are saying, what the players might want, what the coaches are saying, what the coaches might want, what the fan base is saying, what other national media people are saying. And it's like, well, hold on, let's parse this down a little bit and really get at the core of what the decisions are ahead of Ryan Poles and really try and get ahead of this Bears-Packers game, because that's such an emotional matchup and an emotional game for this city, these fans, understandably. And if things go really well against Green Bay, that'll shape how you might feel about Poles and Eberflus and Fields. And if things go poorly against Green Bay, that might shape how you feel about Eberflus and Fields. But should it? Should one game? Well, we'll get into that a little bit too and really kind of lay this decision bare at the core. Because I think one of the things I'm hearing more and more about is current Bears players and players on other teams or former Bears players talking about Justin Fields is the guy, and to an extent, like Matt Eberflus is the guy. It's all these. It's the video of Matt Eberflus giving his post-game speech and the players buying in, right? And it's current and former player DJ Moore talking about how Justin Fields is the guy. Like, he's our quarterback, he's our guy. We want him back. And Kyle Long and his brother Chris Long in their podcast talking about the Bears should bring back Justin Fields and all the things Justin Fields is doing, and Micah Parsons on his Bleacher Report podcast talking up Justin Fields and how the Bears fans want him back and how cool it is that the fans are chanting, "We want Fields, we want Fields." Like, all of those things are meaningful and have some value to us, but I don't know that they really tell us a lot. I don't know that they're really moving the needle for me in terms of these decisions that Ryan Poles has to make, because the Chicago Bears are playing well right now. And the fact that they're playing well means, of course, then, that anyone involved in any way with this organization, like on the field, or the players, the coaches, etc., of course, that shows that they're playing for Justin Fields and that they're playing for Matt Eberflus and that they should want those people back. Like, that's obvious. If they're playing well, obviously they will want to then keep playing well with the guys that they have. Like, if the Bears weren't playing well right now, weren't playing hard for Justin Fields, weren't playing hard for Matt Eberflus, that would already have answered the question for you, right? So it's not an answer to say they're playing hard, that means for sure you got to bring these guys back. To me, the answer is, if they weren't playing hard, then that tells you for sure you don't bring them back. But the fact that they're playing hard tells you, okay, now maybe you consider bringing them back. Like, it's not playing hard is not the indicator of whether or not you should for sure bring them back, but it does tell you that that you can't rule out bringing them back. Because if they weren't playing well for them, weren't energized for them, weren't supporting them, then that would be the sign that you need that, yeah, it's definitely time to move on. But of course, anytime a team is playing well and guys are having fun and having a good time, they're not going to want you to break up the team chemistry in the locker room or break up the philosophy of the coaching staff. Like, those things are kind of like obvious, and I want to make sure that we don't just like count it twice. I think it's like, oh, well, they're playing well, so they should keep them back. And players are buying in. Well, players are buying in and playing well for them because things are going well. Like we don't want to count that twice as double evidence that you should bring these guys back. It's no, those two things go hand in hand because they are playing well. And I think it's really easy for us to sit there and point to, well, DJ Moore said this and Jalen Johnson says this and other players say this and former players say this. You got to keep the team together. And we should keep in mind that, like, of course, players are going to defend their teammates and are going to, these other, their teammates that they have emotional and personal relationships with. They're not going to want to see those guys go, and you're not really going to see them publicly say, yeah, get Justin Fields out of here, or yeah, get Matt Eberflus out of here. And if they were, then that would be, again, the clear and obvious sign to do so. But the fact that they're defending them is not proof that you got to bring them back. That's checking a box like, okay, they're meeting those sort of expectations. But at the end of the day, like, players play, coaches coach, and general managers make personnel decisions. Like, DJ Moore is not your Bears general manager. Jalen Johnson is not your Bears general manager. Those two players and all the players, they're not here to make decisions on which players should be here and not be here. They have biases. They're not talent evaluators. They know football, sure, and they probably could evaluate talent fairly well if sat down in the GM role and could figure some stuff out better than you or I could. But Ryan Poles is in a position from 10,000 feet or however high you want to call that. He has a staff of front office people, a staff of pro scouts and draft scouts and player personnel directors, et cetera, and can take a bigger picture, more objective look and compare what he has to what other teams have in a way that players, either current players or even former players, like, are not taking that exact same vantage point. And that's okay. That's not a criticism of them, but it's like they're not here to make GM decisions. They're here to play football. And certainly they're allowed to express their opinions, but I don't know that we should sit here and say, oh, well, DJ Moore and Jalen Johnson want Justin Fields and Matt Eberflus back, so that's what the team should do, because it's on Ryan Poles to do what's in the best interest of the Chicago Bears, not what's in the best interest of DJ Moore and not what's in the best interest of Jalen Johnson, but what's in the best interest of the Chicago Bears. Sometimes those are the same thing, and sometimes what DJ Moore and Jalen Johnson want are also what's in the best interest of the Chicago Bears. But just because DJ Moore wants it or Jalen Johnson wants it, those are just examples. Just because players say they want it does not mean it is therefore automatically what is in the best interest of the franchise. Certainly team chemistry, the locker room environment, player desire, and player communication is important and part of this process, but it is not the deciding factors in this process. It plays into that idea of, okay, what is best for the Chicago Bears? And I can't help but feel like us on the outside are really going to be tied to a lot of what happens on Sunday against the Green Bay Packers, that you're either going to win a bunch of fans or lose a bunch of fans, depending on what happens against the Packers on Sunday. We started talking about this a little bit on the podcast yesterday, but I want to take a step back and look a little bit bigger picture at why certainly this Packer game matters a ton. But I don't think it should matter a ton in trying to decide whether Matt Eberflus or Justin Fields is brought back in 2024. That's next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at Gametime, the best way to get tickets for all of your favorite live events. I've been to 2 Chicago Bears games this season at Soldier Field, bought my tickets on Gametime for both of them, and used our promo code Locked On and got $20 off one of those ticket purchases. It's great because not only do they have the lowest prices guaranteed with a price match guarantee, but also you can view your view from your seat. You can see ahead of time, okay, if I buy these tickets, what am I going to see? Whether it's at Soldier Field or any concert venue, theater show, you name it, they've got live event tickets wherever you need them at great prices at Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use our promo code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem that code, LOCKEDON, for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. The Chicago Bears have some difficult decisions to make here and have been in this evaluation process here for a little while. And it's why when I talk about taking emotion out of it, it feels to me like what happens against the Green Bay Packers on Sunday really shouldn't move the needle a ton. That by now, at this point in the season, 17 weeks into 2023 season, now in 2024, I think you should have been able to see enough if you're Ryan Poles trying to make this decision on your head coach and your quarterback, that either you know by now whether you want Eberflus back or not, and whether you want Fields back or not. Maybe, the exception there is maybe you haven't scouted the rookie quarterbacks all the way or whatever, but like the point is, if you're evaluating your head coach and your quarterback, one more game against the Green Bay Packers, to me, should not have a big swing in that. And of course, games against the Green Bay Packers matter more. The feeling, the emotion, the symbolism, the general weight of these games is higher. They still only count as one win and one loss. The Bears are still eliminated from the playoffs, still already have the number one overall pick. So the actual outcome of Bears-Packers won't have a huge tangible effect, but it will mean something to the city, to the fans. This is absolutely an important football game that the Chicago Bears need to come out and win. But whether Justin Fields throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns or 100 yards and 4 interceptions, to me, should not have a big swing on the evaluation of Fields. Okay, if he has one more really good game, okay, if you weren't convinced by now to bring Justin Fields back, because he had a really good game against the Falcons and Cardinals and beat the Lions twice. If you weren't convinced now, is one more good game against the Packers enough to say, all right, I'm convinced. He changed my mind. I thought he was inconsistent. I thought he was this, that, and the other thing. But because he did it one more time against that team, all of a sudden, never mind. I'm all in on Fields all of a sudden, and vice versa. If you thought, man, Justin Fields is special. His escapability, his legs are incredible. He's great from the pocket. He could throw downfield. You finally got him receivers. You get him more weapons. He's going to be even better. This is my guy. The Bears need to go all in on Fields. And then he has another bad game against the Green Bay Packers. All of a sudden, does that undo everything you thought about Justin Fields? Oh, never mind. Sorry, he can't. He didn't perform well against the Green Bay Packers in Week 18 that. So therefore, get him out of here. Draft that rookie quarterback. That to me doesn't feel rational. When I talk about taking the emotion out of this decision, if you're Ryan Poles. So easy to be emotional about the Green Bay game. You should be emotional about playing and beating the Green Bay Packers. I'm not saying you shouldn't be emotional about the game, but don't take that emotion from this game and apply it to Justin Fields. Same thing is true for Matt Eberflus as a head coach. Now, this Bears team is winning games, back-to-back games, multiple times, and really kind of looking like a team buying in and playing well for its coach. And if they go to Green Bay and shut down Jordan Love and the defense dominates once again, is that going to change your mind either way on Matt Eberflus? Or if they go to Green Bay and lose again, is that going to change your mind either way? Again, it feels like at this point, either, man, this defense is playing great. Eberflus found a way for these guys to buy in. They're doing the hits principle. Things are working. The players are all in. They're clearly responding well to what he does as a coach, and he got them through adversity. He should be back as the coach. But then they have one bad game against Green Bay. You say, oh, never mind. That was all fool's gold because it didn't happen against Green Bay. It doesn't feel like the Packers game should swing you that much in the other direction. And vice versa. If you're someone who says, man, even though the Bears are playing well, there's still a lot of coaching problems that are holding this team back. They're still way too conservative. They still don't put all their players in the best position to be successful. And a lot of the turnaround on defense seems to be personnel-based and not so much the coaches. And I don't really know what the coaching staff is doing to make these players better. It just seems like the players are good players that Ryan Poles added, and any defensive coach would be able to have some pretty good success with a good young secondary, and et cetera, et cetera. Oh, but they had a great game against the Packers, so never mind. Eberflus is the guy. Bring him back. It should not come down to one game. This should not be a decision that just comes down to whether or not you beat the Packers and how well you beat the Packers. At this point, whether or not a half a season is enough of a track record is a separate discussion. But compared to one game, the previous 7 or 8 that we've seen from Fields and Eberflus matter a lot more than the last one against Green Bay, even though it's the Packers, even though there's the proverbial monkey on the back, even though Fields is 0-5 against the Packers, and even though Eberflus hasn't beat the Packers and all this stuff, it means a lot. The game means a lot. I'm not trying to tell you the game doesn't mean a lot, but it should not mean it should not be make or break for Justin Fields or Matt Eberflus. It should be, if you're kind of evaluating both guys on the final 8 games of this season, or the final, depends on how far back you want to go, the final 8 games of the season, then the game against the Packers should count as 1/8 of that evaluation. Like, the game against the Packers shouldn't count that much more than 2 games against the Lions or 1 game against the Vikings. Those are still big divisional games. The games against the Lions are against playoff teams. Like, those are big divisional games against quality opponents. Like, whether that's Green Bay, Detroit, or Minnesota shouldn't really count that much more. You could make the argument that, okay, games against bad teams count less than games against good teams. I'm cool with that as a concept. Absolutely. Like, beating the Panthers 16-13 doesn't matter as much to me as beating the Falcons 37-17. Like, each game can have different weight. But one Week 18 game at the very end against Green Bay Packers should not be so drastically outweighing the previous 7 or 8 or 9 games, or whatever stretch you're really using to evaluate Justin Fields and Matt Eberflus. And you can't let the emotion of, oh man, whatever, the good or the bad that happens against the Packers, because it's against the Packers, like, no, it's another good or bad game in a sample size of 8 games or whatever you want to evaluate for Fields and Eberflus, and shouldn't weigh any more than that. Like, I think it's important in this process, like, whether it's what happens against the Packers or what players are saying or what media people are saying or what former players are saying, like, we really got to strip that down and really get at the core of the decision here. Because again, there's a lot of emotions and a lot of people are like jumping on the Caleb Williams stuff and like talking a lot of trash and smack about Caleb Williams and criticizing him in, I think, unfair ways. And then plenty of people are criticizing Justin Fields in unfair ways. And again, it starts to become like this. There's been a lot of like personal attacks. I've seen people going back and forth on, oh, if you think this about Fields, or if you think this about Caleb Williams, or you think this about Eberflus, then that means you're dumb or stupid or bad or whatever. And like, let's again, strip a lot of that down and get at some of the, like, what is the really true core decision? What is it that Matt Eberflus that Ryan Poles is truly weighing in his head coach and quarterback decisions, so that we can then sort of approach it from a less emotional, more trying to be objective and rational perspective. Next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. This week is the last week to get in on the NFL action at FanDuel, and it's still a great time because right now, new customers will get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Win or lose on your $5 bet, you're going to get $150 added to your account in bonus bets. So Bears-Packers, if you want to bet Bears-Packers, it's Bears +3 on the spread. The money line for Bears straight up is Bears +140, and the over-under is set at 44 points between these two teams. But you don't have to bet on the Bears game. You can bet on any football game, any sporting event, basketball, hockey, college sports, the national championship game coming up, tennis, golf, soccer, you name it. They have it at FanDuel. So place that $5 bet on any of them, and you're going to get $150 in bonus bets. To do so, just visit FanDuel.com/locked on and make your bet count before the end of this Bears season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. When you really strip it down from all of the different rhetoric and emotion and everything that plays into these decisions on the head coach and the quarterback, and I know as we've been talking about it, like the head coach thing seems to be a little bit more set. The expectation is that Eberflus will come back, but I don't think it's locked in stone 100%. I don't know that has not been definitively said. He's expected to be back, whereas Field is a bit more up in the air contextually. But like, I still think it's important to try and make sure that everyone understands like what the two sides here are that you're trying to weigh. Because, like with Justin Fields, the question is not and has never been Ryan Poles trying to decide, is Justin Fields a good quarterback? That's not really the question here. And I think sometimes the debate on Twitter or wherever, and even at the bar, like comes down to like people arguing, is Justin Fields a good quarterback? Is Justin Fields a starting caliber quarterback? Is Justin Fields good enough? And that's not fundamentally, when you strip it down, that's not exactly what Ryan Poles is trying to decide. Like, I think we can all see Justin Fields has talent as an NFL quarterback, like that he is a guy who at the very least belongs in the NFL. How great, where you would rank him in the quarterbacks is a separate conversation that I'm not really that interested in having, to be honest with you. But that's not purely the question in front of Ryan Poles. The same thing I think is true for Matt Eberflus, right? The question is not purely, is he a good head coach, yes or no? Like, we're seeing him coach up a quality defense right now. Like, we've seen to some extent, like, Matt Eberflus has some coaching, it's a talent. I don't know if that's the word to use with coaching, but quality, like he's doing some things right. Like, there's no denying that. That's not the question. Is this quarterback doing things right? Is this head coach doing things right? But the equation is a little bit more specific than that, and I think we got to make sure that we're doing the right math. Like, the question let's start with the head coach. The question is not just, is Matt Eberflus getting his defense to play well, and will he be able to sustain that? But it's like, it's bigger than that. Is Matt Eberflus a coach that you think can lead this team to playoff and postseason success? Is this a head coach that you trust with critical decisions in playoff games? The specific things that a head coach controls, not just on game day, but bigger picture. Do you trust Matt Eberflus to pick a good offensive coordinator? Do you trust Matt Eberflus to fire Luke Getsy or to make the right? I mean, I guess if you think Luke Getsy is the guy, do you trust him to make the right decision at offensive coordinator? Whether that's Getsy or most people, I think, want to fire Luke Getsy. Do you trust that he will fire Luke Getsy if that's what you think is the best thing for the Bears? And do you also trust that he will pick a competent replacement for Luke Getsy? Do you trust that he will pick a competent DC, defensive coordinator, that won't quote unquote resign from the team mid-season? That he won't pick a running backs coach who is, I'm pretty sure, was fired. I don't know if they use the term fired or terminated or what, but you know what I mean? We have seen this coaching staff lose multiple coaches mid-season, and it's a little bit easy to forget that when the team is winning and playing well, and it's a lot of fun. And I don't want to harp on it too bad, but with Matt Eberflus, it's like, when you go into a matchup against another good team, are you going to feel outcoached? When are you going to feel outcoached? Sometimes, every coach gets outcoached sometimes. No one has never been outcoached. No one has never been outcoached. Yeah, I was getting the double negatives there. So there's always going to be times when Andy Reid gets the best of you, or, I guess in years past, Bill Belichick gets, sure. Sometimes you're going to be outcoached. How often are you going to feel like, man, we got outcoached today? The things that a head coach specifically controls. Philosophically, do you like Matt Eberflus and the way he approaches the team in terms of what feels a little bit more conservative to me in terms of running the ball and defense? And you get to the end of the first half against the Falcons, and they get to midfield, they throw a screen, they hand it off, and they choose to settle for a field goal without the defense having to stop them to get a field goal. But because they thought the field goal was the best choice there, they missed the field goal. It's almost returned back for a touchdown. Do you like that philosophy of Matt Eberflus? Because like the quarterback decision, if you fire Matt Eberflus and hire a different head coach, there's no guarantee that other head coach is going to be better than Matt Eberflus. It's an odds game, just like with the quarterback. If you move on from Justin Fields and get a rookie, there's no guarantee that rookie is going to be better than Fields. They could be much better than Fields. A new coach could be much better than Eberflus. But with Eberflus, you have something. And with Justin Fields, you have something. It's a question of how comfortable are you with that thing, plus another offseason of additions to support that thing, as opposed to the alternative, who's also going to get some offseason additions. That's the question with Fields too. It's not just, is Fields good? It's, are you better off resetting with a rookie quarterback? The Fields conversation is inherently tied to having the number one overall pick. If the Bears didn't have the Panthers pick, I think we're having a very different conversation right now, right? It becomes Fields plus everything you could get from trading down from the number one overall pick, minus the potential salary cap implications of a future contract for him a couple years down the line, versus the rookie quarterback plus whatever you get from trading Fields, plus the rest of your draft picks, plus a little bit more financial flexibility for a couple of seasons on that quarterback. And you start to add in other factors in this equation of okay, does a rookie quarterback, if you're Ryan Poles, does a rookie quarterback increase your job security? Because now we have to be patient with the rookie quarterback. If you're Matt Eberflus, does the rookie quarterback increase your job security? Because, okay, we drafted a rookie, so you can't expect me to go to the Super Bowl. year one with a rookie quarterback, so you got to give me a couple years with the rookie quarterback. That's a factor in this equation. Like, sure, there's what's best for the Chicago Bears, but Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus also want to do what's best for them and their jobs and their salaries and their well-being. Like, that's a part of this too. That, again, like trying to tear some of the emotion down from this. Like, certainly moving on from Justin Fields and or Matt Eberflus will have an impact on the locker room, on the team chemistry. Guys love Justin Fields. Guys seem to really like Matt Eberflus. Guys are not going to be happy when you get rid of those players and coaches. Like, they were not happy when you got rid of Roquan Smith. They were not happy when you got rid of Robert Quinn. How big of a factor is that? To me, it's not a deciding factor. It is a factor, but I'm not going to say, you know what? Darn. I think there's this really good coach or this really good quarterback we could get, but some of my players might be upset if we get rid of the guy that they like. Like, I would rather, if I'm running the Chicago Bears, I want the players that are best for the Bears, not the players that my players like the most. You know what I mean? It's a tricky game, but like, if everyone loves Matt Eberflus and everyone loves Justin Fields, and that's great, and you want that, if you replace them with a head coach that's good and or a quarterback that's really good, they'll love them too. You know, that's the thing. And if that head coach and quarterback aren't any good, they're not going to love them, and they wouldn't have loved them anyway. So, like, to me, the players and the locker room chemistry thing, it matters, but like, chemistry is only a problem if the guy you replace them with is bad. And if the guy you replace them with is better or good, then chemistry won't be a problem, because players and coaches love to win, love to be successful. When you're winning, you're having fun, and it's really easy to get over your hurt feelings of losing Justin Fields or Matt Eberflus if the guy you replace them with is good. And if the guy you replace them with is bad, then you're never going to really get the buy-in anyway, because they were bad in the first place. And so it doesn't really matter that they loved Fields and Eberflus. All that matters is if you replace them, that they're better. And so that's why, like, I don't feel like we should take too much stock in the emotion of like, oh, the players really like them or whatever, because the players will really like another winning coach. The players will really like another winning quarterback, and they really won't like a loser at either spot. And that doesn't really matter. All that matters is, are they better or worse than Matt Eberflus and Justin Fields? And the chemistry thing is pretty fixable based on success as a result of that. It's why players aren't still mad about losing Roquan Smith and Robert Quinn, because the defense is playing better. And they replaced them with Tremaine Edmonds and Montez Sweat, two players who are really good and who the players love. You know what I mean? Like, they were mad when they traded away Khalil Mack. They were mad when they traded away these players. Oh, it's going to ruin the chemistry. I mean, it does, until you replace them with better options. And if they replaced them with worse options, it would have been a real problem for the chemistry. So, like, the chemistry argument really falls pretty flat for me, and why, again, it feels like an emotion part of this. You got to take the emotion out of it and really lay it bare and look at what is best for the Chicago Bears. And that comes down to Ryan Poles evaluating how much, what do I think Fields can be? What is Fields now? What do I think he can be? What do I think Caleb Williams is now? What do I think Caleb Williams can be? Or Drake May, or any of the rookie quarterbacks. Same thing with Eberflus. What do I think Eberflus is now? What do I think he can be? What do I think Ben Johnson is now, or he could be, or Jim Harbaugh, or whatever? Like, that's, at the end of the day, where you see the players now, the two choices on either side of the equation, where you see them 2, 3, 4 years from now, and which of those paths looks better for the Chicago Bears. It's a great opportunity for Ryan Poles to shape this franchise with his fingerprints. He's really done a good job to put this team in this position to have these difficult decisions to make. It's kind of a good decision that either way, you know, you don't feel like either option is terrible. It's just a matter of which one is better, which is a good thing when it's all said and done. Certainly, we don't have the answers today. Certainly, the Green Bay Packers game shouldn't give us the answers either, but I'd love to know how you're feeling about the discourse around the Bears quarterback and head coaching decision. Let us know in the comments here in the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, or you can tweet us at Locked On Bears. You can post in the Locked On Bears Facebook group. However you do it, just make sure that you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. That's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Come on back tomorrow. Make us your first listen again as we do Crossover Thursday. Get the scoop on what's going on with Jordan Love in Green Bay from everyone's favorite Locked On Packers host. But this will be a more lively, I think. Bears coming and feeling pretty good in this matchup. So there's a lot of room to talk back and forth, I think, in this Crossover Thursday. And then we'll put together a game plan for a Bears victory on Friday. And no matter what, every day we'll give you another opportunity to bear down.